Welcome to the Friday Night Drive podcast, Illinois Valley edition. He's Shaw Sports West editor JT Pedelty. I'm Daily Chronicle sports editor Eddie Carifio, and this year we're live, baby. JT, other than live, how you feeling?
Oh, I wasn't nervous until you said that.
Live, JT.
Live. I guess it's better than the alternative. Man, I'm happy football season's here, man. It's when you're a sports reporter, summers are great. You get to spend a little more time with the family, and the kids are out of school, and things are a little bit more relaxed. And man, when the fall comes, when it rains, it pours. But it's exciting to be here, and I'm excited to get on the sideline, and I'm excited to talk to you today about a lot of really good matchups we have in the Illinois Valley area.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a fun week one. That is for sure. I think a good place to start is let's go way south. Let's go some further south than you. Let's go to Washington, where Kaneland's going to open the season against Washington, against a Panthers team that is coached by Princeton alum Todd Stevens. JT, I'll kick this over to you. You know much about Todd Stevens? We should probably try to channel our inner Kevin Hieronymus right now.
No, I get sent living down in Streeter, kind of towards the southern reach of the Friday Night Drive main coverage area of the teams we kind of follow every week. I take a lot of visits to Washington, Streeter, Ottawa, LaSalle, Peru. They bump into each other a lot in the postseason, not as much in the regular season. I don't know Todd. I actually don't believe I've ever covered a Washington football game, which is really weird. Tons of Metamora somehow. But
apparently they have a really weird Panther. I have it from a very good source. In fact, the best source, Steve Soucie, that they have this really weird Panther sculpture hovering over their end zone or something.
Oh, now I have to go. I go there. Yeah. I drive through there quite often on the way to Peoria or by there or stop in over there or whatnot. So I'll definitely have to check that out. But yeah, this looks like a great. I may not have been to a lot of Washington football games, but you sure know a lot about them. Just a great program. We're going to hit on what I believe is their arch rival, Metamora, a little bit later as we go through games. But just some really strong football down there. And, Washington's there. And obviously Kaneland's one of the traditionally kind of been a pretty good team. But Kaneland this year, Eddie, kind of a bit of a question mark as opposed to the past couple of years when they've definitely been on the rise.
Yeah, no, definitely a gigantic question mark in terms of what they have back. Every high school program goes through it every 2 to 3 years. You have to replace a lot of starters, and that's certainly the boat Kaneland is in this year. They had a quarterback competition to replace a 4-year starter quarterback starting since the shortened spring season of 21. That tells you how long Troyer Carlson had been the quarterback at Kaneland. As he was like a foggy fever dream from yore, and it was, he was starting then. But Chase Kruckenberg won out the job. He's a senior. Coach Michael Thorgeson says that they're in good hands with the understudy of a 4-year starter. So, like I said, Kruckenberg's a senior, won the job, beat out junior Carter Grabowski, who's still going to be a big part of the offense at running back. Offensive line brings a lot back. They got guys like Vinny McDonald, the linebacker. That should be able to do a lot of things defensively. It's going to be really interesting, and against a Washington team that I think is replacing at least a legendary coach, like we said, in Darryl Crouch, but with Princeton boy Todd Stevens. But it should really be a good match. I was going to say a lot about where these two teams are to start the year.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? If we have a few thread lines that kind of come up over and over again in this podcast, now the second year we've been doing it, kind of covering the south of the suburbs teams and Friday Night Drive coverage area. If there's a few thread lines, one of them is I like conferences, you like districts. One of them is some conferences need to go away no matter how much you like them. And I think a third one definitely is how close is Kaneland to being, we keep talking about them knocking on the door with Sycamore and Morris and every matchup and proving themselves over and over. And the 2024 season is going to be a chance for Kaneland to prove themselves all over again. We'll see against a really quality program come Friday.
Yeah, and they're going to have a lot of those. Their non-conference schedule is loaded. They got Washington, they got Wakanda next week. I think Wakanda was 9-2 last year, I want to say. Really good. Obviously, the conference with Sycamore and
Morris.
Sycamore and Morris. Plus, Rochelle's back in the mix this year on the schedule. They're a smaller school, but obviously perennial playoff team. And I think they end the year at Althoff Catholic. When your only respite is a DeKalb team, it looks like it should be improved and is, a class larger. It's definitely a really a gauntlet Kaneland has to go through this year. So they're going to be tested by the end of it, obviously.
Yeah, well, you brought up DeKalb. I see that's one of the ones you'd like to talk about, and rightfully so. DeKalb-Sycamore, huge rivalry, played in one of the best stadiums in the state. Just kind of talk if you would let us know a little bit about it, Eddie.
Yeah, no, this should be a really good one. You're at the cycle with both of these teams. We just talked about Kaneland not having a lot back. Both of these teams are loaded with returning talent with DeKalb and Sycamore. There's D1 athletes on both teams. You have a quarterback, soon to be linebacker when he goes to Iowa, but for now, quarterback and safety Burke Goucher for Sycamore. Standout player, reigning Daily Chronicle Player of the Year for football. Other side of the ball, you have a junior, Devon Grant, who has, I believe it's 8 Division I scholarship offers at this point. Most of them, obviously, he got as a sophomore, just a breakout season. Put himself on the map with 2 really big catches, including one for a touchdown against Sycamore. He was their offense. It was a 14-7 game at halftime. His touchdown made it close. Sycamore ended up winning 42-7 last year. They just had the horses on a really good team against a very inexperienced DeKalb team. They had, I think, Coach Schneeman, Derek Schneeman, another name recognizable down south. He said they had like 18 or 19 first-time starters in that game, which for rivalry games is bad enough. But also, the game being played at Husky Stadium, you're playing in a Division I, stadium, Division I atmosphere. It's a lot, especially when you have that many people who haven't experienced before. Now, both these teams are loaded with, like I said, talent, and Grant is definitely leading the way for DeKalb in that.
And when you mentioned that how young DeKalb was last year, and it kind of is the opposite of what we talked about with Kaneland. Kaneland was senior heavy last year. Look at all the great things they accomplished. Well, the downside of that is now we're at this year, new kids got to step up. And the reverse of that is DeKalb was kind of young last year, and you take your lumps a little bit, but then gives you a lot of promise, a lot of experience coming back. Maybe that big stage won't be so daunting to them this year.
I mean, that's a big challenge in this game. I mean, not just the at least one coach referred to it as a crosstown rivalry, which, as we're all very well aware, this was a discussion internally. Technically not a crosstown rivalry, by the strict sense of the word. But no, definitely you put aside the rivalry factor of it, and you're still playing in front of 10,000 people. Generally, they get between 8,000 and 10,000 people at that game. They pack them all on one side of the stands, and it is just full. And that is a huge element that goes a long way in this underrated rivalry game, if you're asking me, and I think you did. So
yeah, no, I agree. And I think, we have ours down this way. Obviously you have your, down this way you have your Ottawa and LaSalle, Peru, Ottawa and Streeter, yeah. And everyone has their rivals, their arch rivals, everything. But I think DeKalb-Sycamore deserves to be high on that list. You'd like to see DeKalb, get a couple and kind of renew some of the interest in it. I think Sycamore's had the better of it for quite a while now.
It actually only been 2 years. DeKalb won the 20. DeKalb, they pushed their winning streak, I want to say, to 9 years in 2021 after the pandemic, right. And they had it. But that, looking back on it in retrospect, was probably a pretty big upset because that Sycamore team ended up making the semifinals that year.
Yeah, so we're in the correction now. We don't need the correction. My apologies.
Yeah, exactly. It's always been. I think for the last 15 years of the game, it's been dominated by pretty much 2 long winning streaks. Sycamore had a long one right before DeKalb's one. DeKalb obviously is looking to prevent that from happening.
Yes.
Nipping it in the bud too. Sycamore obviously would love to keep the streak of streaks going. So,
yeah. And it seems like a natural transition. We go from, we'd already talked about Kaneland and Sycamore. So that other team in the Interstate 8 that kind of everyone's talking about, Morris is.
I was going to do that. I was going to go with the Morris.
But yeah, Morris kicks off at home against Coal City. It's a game they won handily last year. This year, just kind of the exact same thing we were talking about with Kaneland is, Morris. They lost a whole lot from a great football team last year. And Coal City had 3 losses last year. There was Morris in week 1, and then they lost to a couple state champs 2A state champ Wilmington, and then in the playoffs 4A state champ Rochester. Or I'm sorry, and then also 4A state champ Rochester.
Yeah, that's a resume for sure.
Yeah, so and Coal City has a lot back, including Landon Benson, who has to be one of their leading tacklers. He's probably going to break the school rushing record this year, career rushing record. He kicks the extra points, he punts, he drives the bus. He does just about everything for the Kohlers. He's back. They have a lot back, and I think this will be a pretty good matchup. A lot of times just based on school size, you got to like Morris's chances, but you're talking an experienced, ready to make some noise Coal City team against a Morris team that admittedly got to play, a lot of kids who got to play in second halves and whatnot last year when the team was comfortably ahead, but some kids are going to be suiting up varsity for the first time. So I think this could be a really good one.
It seems like last year we were talking about Kaneland, like you had said, like that. I think Coal City might be that team this year. I think Coal City might be that team that, obviously great resume last year, losing to 2 state champions, and Morris is definitely not a pushover by any means. So really great resume, but are they able to take it up even to a higher level this year from that already high level they're at? I think that's going to be one of those through lines we talk about a lot week in and week out. And I think it starts this week. They can put the conversation to bed pretty early, actually, with the win this week. I don't know too much about the history of the rivalry. Offhand, is that one that's like split, or is that one
it's a fairly recent re-addition to each other's schedules?
There's one of those they played in the 20s all the time and then took 50 years off.
Yeah,
those are the best.
Yeah, I think it's something like that. And just to put it out there, because it's going to come up, week 7 is Coal City Wilmington. It'll be at Wilmington this year. We will bring this up probably every week, especially when we get into conference standings and what the Illinois Central 8 looks like and everything. So anyone who's listening in Coal City wants to know, yes, week 7 is Wilmington at Wilmington. That's October 11th. If you want to make sure no one, you don't have any weddings on October 12th or anything that you have to be at.
You probably want to throw that on your Illinois Valley podcast bingo card. Talking about that game, that definitely should get on the bingo card.
Yeah, this is a measuring stick for Coal City, and don't get me wrong, they want this one. They're 2 towns very close to each other. I guarantee Coal City wants this game, but Wilmington's always kind of looming there. This one will be a sign of things to come. The real measuring stick will come week 7 against Wilmington.
There are sometimes we do talk about suburb teams, and I think we're about to do that right now. Aurora Christian, of course, because they are playing Marquette in what should be, again, down your way, a really interesting matchup between a couple of playoff teams and a rematch of a not so close game last year, but probably going to be a different result this year.
Yeah, Aurora Christian got Marquette 42-0 in last year's season opener, which Aurora Christian winning, not a surprise. Maybe the final score was. I know Marquette coach Tom Yupst kind of talked about that game and kind of pointed that to the success the team ended up having and making their 11th straight run to the 1A playoffs. Talked about that game as, hey, that opened our eyes a little bit. That woke us up. That let us know what we needed to do. And that the team kind of recommitted themselves after that and ended up having, another really successful season. Aurora Christian did graduate All-State quarterback Owen Hampton. So kind of how they plug in with that will be interesting. What they'll have. Marquette lost a lot of their running backs from their wing T system that Tom Yupst runs. So I think this will be a really nice, again, week 1's all about measuring sticks. It's let's find out, is this team what we think they are? And you, myself, our colleagues with Friday Night Drive, you're not going to find better summer coverage of football teams anywhere around of high school football. I think almost all of our teams get featured. We're at practices. We're at 7-on-7s. We're at week 0 scrimmages, which apparently are now a thing.
Apparently.
Yes. So, we're kind of, you won't see more summer coverage, but at the end of the day, week 1's when you really find out. You preview, you try and find out, you do everything you can to get educated. But until those kids put on the pads, take the field, you just don't know. So this will be another one of those week 1 games. Is Marquette just kind of reload in that wing T? Can they keep up the Aurora Christian? What's Aurora Christian going to do? Having to replace, a quarterback who did everything for him last year. So I think it'll be a really good matchup and a really good sign of things to come.
There's a really good story up on Friday Night Drive right now from Soucie about all the top teams in the state not being able to find anybody to play, so they're just playing each other. So that's definitely a storyline you can read about that there. And obviously, I think, I don't know if exactly Aurora Christian-Marquette falls in that category, but that is definitely two really good teams battling it out in the first week.
Yeah, I think it does fall in that category a bit. You know, Marquette has, I believe they have one opponent that they're playing twice this year. You know, and multiple teams in that conference, the Chicagoland Prairie, which, you know, started with 8 teams last year and is already down to 5 after 1 year of play.
It was down to 5 after 3 weeks of play, wasn't
it? Not quite, but close. It was down to 7 after 3 weeks of play. But yeah, and you know what? That's another one where we talked about our thread lines that we're going to talk about week after week. You know, that's a conference that, you know, I'll guarantee to you those schools are peeking their head, looking around, because, you know, you don't want to have to play someone twice in a year in order to fill out a schedule. You don't want to have to. I know an 8-man. I wish I could remember off the top of my head which team it was. There's a team that finishes its season playing the same team twice, 2 weeks in a row, weeks 8 and 9.
Yeah, that's
awful to me.
Yeah, 8-man does have a lot of stuff like that. Actually, that's why I was kind of surprised and excited to see in 8-man North 1, which includes Hiawatha, and includes, I believe, all the Hebrons in there. There are 10 teams. Yeah. So they are actually able to do a closed loop. And I know a lot of those teams probably haven't been involved in the 10-team conference in a very long time, because I know there's some old Northeast Athletic Conference survivors in there. So it's probably been a while since those teams have had schedule stability. Now we'll see if it remains throughout the year. Like you said, it obviously happened in the Chicagoland Prairie, where a team dropped out. You saw it in the Big Northern Conference, possible transition coming up, with Rockford Christian dropping football, leaving that 10-team league scrambling. But yeah, hopefully that's a good step for 8-man. That's actually 10 teams now, and hopefully the other 3 conferences will join them soon.
Yeah, and if they do, I think you'll see 8-man, become an official IHSA sport. When it gets to those types of numbers, I think it's been knocking on that door a couple years. Last year, I think it actually might have lost a team compared to what they had in previous years, but this year they kind of made their gains again and kind of are crawling closer and closer to that number that will give them a percentage of schools that play that will make the IHSA most likely, designated an emerging sport, and then do that. I mean, they already have the schedules on their website. They already, keep track of stuff like that. So it's a pseudo IHSA sport, but I think we'll see it get there, especially now that we have, girls flag football is in its first year as an official IHSA sport. So, if that's there, I can't assume 8-man football is very far behind.
None of the schools up here that we cover at the Daily Chronicle at least have a girls flag football program yet. So that's something I'm waiting anxiously for, because that's certainly going to be an exciting sport. I know there's going to be some good games on that side this year, but we'll see if DeKalb-Sycamore add teams at some points.
Yeah,
or Indian Creek. I don't want to leave anybody out.
Yeah, and a shout out to the Chicago Bears. I think my understanding is Chicago Bears financially helped out a lot of schools that I am sure it's an NFL initiative. But, helped out a lot of schools. Hey, do you want to start a girls flag program? We got the equipment. Hey, we've got a grant for you to help you do what you need to do. So I think that's really cool, really forward thinking of the NFL, and you'd love to say they're doing it for all the right reasons. And I'm sure there's some of that. Also, if 50% of the United States population, you can get them into football at a young age, that's only good for the future of the NFL and the game.
Yeah.
So
like most things the NFL does, it's growing the brand, but at least it's a positive side effect, unlike, gambling or whatever. So yes. We did bring up the scrambling that the BNC is having to do because of Rockford Christian's late drop. There's a couple interesting games in there, and one of them, I should point out that we're going to have guests on this podcast. We wanted to do a trial run, me and JT, since we are professionals, obviously, at doing this. one of the 3 highest rated podcasts that Friday Night Drive has.
Yeah.
So
of the 3 podcasts.
Yes, we're definitely top 3, maybe 4th, but definitely, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, Stillman Valley Dixon in the BNC. That seems to be a really intriguing matchup. Obviously, throughout the year, we'll have Drake Landsman, who's out with Sauk Valley Media on the podcast. The aforementioned Hieronymus will join us at some points. But JT's Stillman Valley Dixon, that one does seem to jump out as a early season grudge match in the BNC between 2 teams that, obviously, Byron's probably your prohibitive favorite in the conference with how much they're returning and how good they've been. But
yes,
Stillman and Dixon are right there, 2nd and 3rd.
Yeah, and you talk about those closed loop conferences, the closed conferences, 10 teams. Those are the ADs who sleep well at night, the ones who have their schools.
Yeah, but you see how that happens. One school not having enough players, and all of a sudden,
it throws
I don't think
everything.
either one of these teams have a replacement game yet. It's going to be hard to find.
Yeah, but so the Big Northern jumps right into conference play right from the start. A couple of 3A, 4A playoff teams from last year. Stillman Valley was 3A, Dixon was 4A, and Dixon coming off a 9-2 season. Stillman Valley, I think, was 6-5. So we're talking about a couple teams that won a playoff game. Stillman Valley, has pretty much their entire running back core back from last year. Which should obviously make them pretty dangerous, and
especially the offense they run.
Exactly. And Dixon, they had 2 losses last year, and they were both the teams that played the day after Thanksgiving. 4A runner-up St. Lawrence, 3A state champ Byron, the aforementioned Byron. So, and Dixon has 13 starters back. So, this is a really nice week 1 matchup. Seuss mentioned, a lot of teams have to go far, or you get non-conference matchups that are real good in week 1, but this is a conference matchup, which means it, counts doubly so. And, week 1, I mean, what more do you want?
Yeah, no, certainly it's definitely one of the marquee games that the conference is going to have this year between, like I said, probably I'm pretty sure they were 2nd and 3rd last year, probably shooting to do that again. I know still some teams have emerged. North Boone is definitely poised for a lot of stuff this year. Oregon is definitely poised for a leap this year. Well, like I said, that 2 through 5 spot in the conference, GK probably wants to get back in the mix. That 2 through 5 spot in the conference is going to be really, really interesting. And, it's why they play the games, Byron's, they're still just a football team. So,
and the one thing with closed conferences, like we mentioned again, what really makes a big difference in closed conferences, conference standings, finishing 2nd in a conference, 4th in a conference. In a lot of leagues, it doesn't really matter. If you're not the champion, get your 5 wins and you're fine. In a closed conference, the conference standings pretty much are the playoff rankings, how you get in. So finishing 4th in a 10-team conference, mathematically, I'm sure there's some weird way where maybe you wouldn't be in, but almost guaranteed if you finish 4th, you finish 5th, you're going to be at 5 wins at least.
Yeah. Well, this year is going to be obviously a little weird, especially for the teams that they can't fill their schedule.
Yeah, exactly.
With Rockford Christian. It's not, it was a closed conference up until 2 weeks ago, and now there's some buys, and it's going to be hard for some of those teams to, fill in. I'm trying to look really quick. Dixon, it's October 11th. What's that, week 7? There aren't a lot of teams looking for a week 7 opponent. And then
give it a little time. There will be, for one reason or another.
And then Stillman's got them week 4, supposed to have played Rockford Christian. So, those just open there. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it's as far as we know, it's Genoa, Kingston, Byron, and Oregon have all found replacements. Byron's going to be playing Athens in a really intriguing week 9 matchup. We got time to talk about that. GK had a scramble in less than 2 weeks to find an opponent, and actually they're bringing in Chicago Leo so that they will have their 9 games. So it's going to be interesting up in the BNC for sure.
Yeah, and right down the road from Dixon and Sterling, you talked about Washington that being a powerhouse from down there in Middle Illini, and then we have Metamora visiting Sterling, another couple middle school size just powerhouses, perennial powerhouses. Sterling, in the Western Big Six, they're pretty much the same as they've always were in the Northern Illinois Big 12 or for the older people like us, the North Central Illinois Conference, the beloved NCIC.
I'm 10, buddy. I've only been out here 10 years, so I'm a 10-year-old. You should know this by now.
But yeah, Sterling, even when they have a down year, they seem to make the playoffs. They went 4-5 last year and were part of those one of those 4-5 teams that the schedule was strong enough. The opponent, which obviously playing in the Western Big Six and having week 1 games like Metamora, that'll happen. But 4-5 got into the playoffs. Now he got in. I think that they win a game. I think they did. So I think they won their playoff games or opening playoff games. So Sterling will be young this year, but they bring back Caden Phillips is just a dynamic playmaker for them, kind of a receiver. I think he takes some handoffs, some types of things like that. Just dynamic player. I think he'll lead the way for a good group for Sterling and Metamora. Like we said, at Washington. Metamora is like Washington, but even more so. They're it's a powerhouse. They're always excellent. They had an 8-3 year last year, and don't know a ton about what they have back or whatever. But I can go ahead and assume they're going to end up somewhere around 8-3 this year, if not a little better. That's just Metamora Redbirds football.
Yeah, Sterling last year beating an undefeated Chicago Peyton team in the first round before falling to St. Francis, 49-8 in second round. Second one obviously being a home game for them. But yeah, 28-17 last year against Metamora, and a solid game down there. Coming here, like you said, or going out to Sterling should be. This is definitely intriguing, and I don't know. I guess you'd be calling it an upset. I think definitely it's an upset-minded Sterling team, and I'm not going to say lock it in, but I definitely think it's in play for Sterling to pick up a week 1 win.
Yeah, another great week 1 matchup. And while we're in Sterling, we can go right down the road, although this is a road game. But Newman Central Catholic is going to be visiting Princeton. I think that's a marquee matchup in the Three Rivers Conference, a crossover game between one of their divisions, Rock and Mississippi. Crossover game between the two, and another couple powerhouse programs. What Princeton has done, here in the past handful of years has just been amazing. Cranking out D1 athletes. They have their tight end Noah Laporte is being recruited from Northwestern. They have running backs Ace Christian, Casey Etheridge back. Princeton just looks loaded again, and I'm sure this year we'll have Kevin Hieronymus on with us, and he'll be able to tell us a lot about the Princeton Tigers. But great team, great program, and who's going to talk about Newman and not say great team, great program? If you haven't seen him in a while, I came across this just kind of researching today that their quarterback Evan Bushman is back this year. He threw for 1,500 yards last year, over 1,500 yards. I don't think I've seen Newman attempt 15 passes in the 10 I've covered of them over the years when they bumped up against, say, a Fieldcrest in the playoffs, or they used to be in a conference with Ottawa Marquette. So Newman throwing the ball around a little bit, and that should be a real fun one, I think, at Princeton.
Something that always gets me is the tight end at the high school level. I was just thinking about this the other day. You don't always, there are always a lot of standout athletes there. They always end up playing someone else, or it's more of a blocking position, so they don't draw a lot of D1 talent. I think that speaks to, Laporte and what he's doing at Princeton, that he's going high-level D1, Power 5 D1 to Northwestern, in a role that you don't see at the high school level a lot.
Yeah, and you know what? It's interesting. I know that the guy that Streeter's Football Stadium just got recently named after, Doug Deacon, Cleveland Browns longtime Pro Bowl lineman, and then he was their announcer for something like 30 years or something. Doug Deacon was a high school tight end, and he was a tight end for University of Illinois, and then went and ended up being an offensive tackle in the NFL. Had a great career. So you can get seen, you can get found, wherever you are, any position. But that is interesting. It's kind of an underutilized position at the high school level. But I think your point's well made, that, and also that the way the game goes, usually you see things in the pros, and then you see it whittle down to college, and then about 10 years later it whittles down to high school. So I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing some Travis Kelce's running around Illinois high school fields here in about 4 or 5 years, one-on-one matchups and the band playing Taylor Swift songs while they're taking the field and all that greatness.
I think we're about winding down. I think there's at least one more I want to bring up, and that's the Cinderella team of all Cinderella teams from last year. A team that didn't play football just a couple of years ago and ends up making a playoff run, and that's Sandwich.
Yeah, Sandwich visiting Manteno, a team that just missed the playoffs last year. That should be I think, a really good matchup. Spoiler alert, our Friday night drive and our weekly picks, we are picking Sandwich to win that game, but I think it could be a really good one. Sandwich brings back 2,000-yard rushers. And like you said, they went 0-9 in 2021. Then they went, did not play a field team in 2022. And then they're in the quarterfinals in 2023. I mean, just an amazing story. I guess the one thing you'd say about Sandwich is they're not going to surprise anyone this year.
Yeah.
And neither is Manteno. They're on a lot of those preseason polls picks to kind of be that fourth team in the Illinois Central 8 that creeps into the playoffs at 5-4 or 6-3 or something. So I think we could have a real good matchup on our hands. And I think we'll see. Sandwich won't sneak up on anyone, so it should be a good one.
Yeah, Sandwich is just really one of the great feel-good stories that you see. Normally there's not a lot of surprises like that. I mean, there'll be an upset here or there or whatever, but just to have a team have that sustained level of success after what they had been through the last 2 years, it's an amazing story that just makes you feel good every single time you hear it. Yeah. So that was really good to see. So we've dried out down here. Anything else?
No, I was going to mention one of the games that I find kind of interesting just in terms of later playoff thing. Plano, the Reapers visit Ottawa at King Field this Friday for week 1. I think that'll be an interesting one. Plano got that one last year on their way to a playoff berth. They had a new coach join. I think it was in July when he took over the program. So we'll see how ready they are for week 1. Visiting Ottawa. Ottawa was really young last year, so they kind of that same boat like that we talked about with DeKalb. Have a lot. The bad news was you were a lot of sophomores and juniors last year. The good news is you're a lot of juniors and seniors this year. So I think that'd be an interesting one.
Yeah, obviously the non-conference games for Ottawa pivotal, given we talked about the Interstate 8 and what a chainsaw that is. You've got 4 just high top end teams with perennial playoff teams with Rochelle, Kaneland, Sycamore, Morris. So it's these non-cons are huge for like an Ottawa or LaSalle. So it's going to be a big one for them to go out and take care of business. They are at home, right? That one is down in Ottawa.
They are at home, and so is LaSalle Peru. They have United Township coming down from the Quad Cities, and then that'll be, like you said, that's a big game if you're going to be in a conference with Sycamore, Rochelle, Morris. If you're going to be in a conference with them, you need to win your non-conference games at every opportunity you get. So LP also going to be young this year, going to be rebuilding a little bit. So that definitely that's one they need if they want to be thinking playoffs. Although LP and Ottawa play each other twice this year, that's another one of those that we mentioned that you're forced to fill in a schedule, so play each other twice. So extra opportunity for one of them to get closer to those 5 wins if they could, sweep their arch rival. Something we wanted to talk about this year, Eddie, we kind of want to just kind of pick a player that we thought, keep an eye on in week 1, maybe someone that's a little surprising, maybe someone that's not surprising at all. That, people, you might hear this name, you might see him. We do a Friday night.
For the record, I went not surprising at all, but
yes, and I went surprising. So that's we'll switch next week. But on Sunday into Monday, for anyone listening, you obviously like high school football if you've been here with us for a half hour. Our Friday Night Drive Team of the Week ballot will be online at our website, FridayNightDrive.com, put together by John Sally and all our sports reporters, and it's an opportunity to vote for some of the best players across the state. And honestly, I like to look at it. I don't vote because I don't think I legally can, or I doubt the courts would get involved. But
it's a legal requirement. No, we cannot.
I like to look at it because I really think it's just a great resource. Hey, you want to see what happened in football in the week over the weekend in the northern half of Illinois? You want to see which players just were studs? There's your list. Even if you don't want to vote, I'd recommend you're there. You might as well vote. But even if you want to just look through it and get an idea of, man, this kid ran. They had a kid run for You know, the Polk High kid ran for 4 touchdowns. That's amazing, So I highly recommend it. But, these are some players that we think you'll probably might be seeing on that ballot amongst a lot of other great high school players. Who'd you have? You said no surprise at all, Eddie. Who do you have as a player that you think is just going to have a really big week 1?
The only way it's surprised because I went a little bit outside of our traditional coverage area, and that's Caden Considine Byron, junior running back. This kid just jaw-dropping numbers as a sophomore, 1,600 yards, 27 touchdowns. They beat Mount Carmel 69-7. He had 153 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. Kid just puts up numbers after numbers and numbers. He's a junior now. Byron does open the season against Rock Falls. Definitely going through a rebuilding phase. They are hoping, I know from some of the stuff that I've seen from Drake and when I put together the BNC conference scouting report available on FridayNightDrive.com. Currently, definitely in that rebuilding type mode. They're hoping to turn things around a little bit. But, man, Considine just seems like an incredible player. He's going to start, I'm sure now as a junior, the offers, even though he's at a 3A type school, the offer is going to roll in for him. It's getting a chance to see him play. It seems like he's just really an explosive player, really great player. So I didn't go with any surprises. I just tried to go outside the footprint a little bit and choosing, the best running back in the state.
And speaking of going outside the footprint, I started my career in 1999 covering I believe it was Ridgeview at Streeter Woodland football game. And so I've been doing it since then. And I get to go to a football field that I've never been to before. This week, I'm going down to Decatur-Eisenhower, a new week 1 opponent for Streeter. Looks like a nice facility. There was a story I came across online doing research, a story that was about 5 years old, that Decatur-Eisenhower is bringing in experts to find out why grass won't grow on their football field. So that was, but I think they've got that solved. I heard it's a beautiful facility. I really look forward to going down there and seeing them. But I'm picking someone from that game. Like I said, that's just kind of someone that maybe a lot of people haven't come across the name. Isaiah Weibel, Zay to his teammates from Streeter. He's taking over a quarterback for multiple-time All-State quarterback Christian Benning, who was kind of the guy who made Streeter the competitive team. They didn't make playoffs, but no one liked playing them the past 3-4 years. And I think every coach after the game was like, how old is the Benning kid? Jeez. Like you said, one of those kids who started in the COVID year and then just felt like he was there forever. But after his graduation, Isaiah Weibel's taken over at quarterback, and he's got Christian Benning's number 1 wide receiver back, Matt Williamson, who is probably going to push up towards 750, 850 yards receiving this year. And then Weibel himself is more of a runner than Benning was, and the new head coach at Streeter, Matt Chloe, is big on running the football, big on balance, big on building up offensive line, weight room. You don't know how quickly that'll translate. He just has been in the job for 6 months. So are they hitting the ground running? Maybe not. But I really think Isaiah Weibel, his 1 start last year when Christian Benning was out with a shoulder injury, he ran the ball for 123 yards and 3 touchdowns. Streeter wants to run the ball. They're converting wide receivers to running back. They're bringing up underclassmen as running back. We're not really sure how good any of them will be. But we do know that Isaiah Weibel can run the ball, and he can run the ball well. So I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities and put up some big numbers down in Decatur on Friday.
Yeah, see, that's a good pick.
We'll see.
Yeah, well, that doesn't matter. It's still a good pick.
Yeah, when I'm writing my story from when I'm filing my story from the Decatur McDonald's parking lot, I might be like, man, I was so stupid. But no, I think he'll have a very good game.
You Google it yet? You Google the drive, so from
I'm not sure. I'm not
sure to the McDonald's.
Yeah, worst case, I can hotspot it. Worst case.
That's something anytime. I always Google from the stadium to the McDonald's. Have to know that trip.
Yeah, but if you want to show your age and how long I've been doing this, I remember the days when you'd park in a hotel parking lot because there were no hotspots on phones, and McDonald's didn't have free Wi-Fi. You'd park in hotel parking lots and just type in my passwords until you got one, and right now you're writing your story. Room 101, yes. Filing my story.
So You've got our picks to click this week. We broke down what I think over 437 games. I want to call it. So I think we're good for this week. Thank you for joining us, and I think we'll be back. Oh, we're going to be back so strong next week. We're bringing in a guest. I mean, yeah. Yeah. Let's get Drake or Hieronymus up into this party.
Sounds good. We'll have some games to talk about. I know Brian Hoxie, Kevin Klum. We got a few guys who'd be happy to join us. Maybe Rob Osterley talk some Morris. So I definitely think we have a fun season ahead of us, and it all starts here in week 1. Eddie, can't wait.
Yeah, I can put on a fake mustache, but I don't know how that would work 100%, but we'll figure it out. He's JT Pedelty. I'm Eddie Carifio. Thank you very much.